by Bulgaria and Estonia. The worst performing are, it would be nice if you could guess and could put in the chat, but we don't have much time for that. So the worst performing are Luxembourg and Cyprus with 15 and 23%. But so, what can we learn from the EU? First of all, please know that the EU is very diverse, and in all member states, on all levels, the topic of gender equality has been raised. This is mainly thanks to the empowerment mechanisms of the EU itself. Between 2014 and 2016, the EU allocated €5 million to 23 projects to improve the gender balance at all management levels. Equality in the decision-making is on top of the agenda of the EU today. In Brussels, women are influential in private sector, particularly when it comes to the tech and digital issues. Women are leading some of Brussels' biggest consultancies, trade associations, NGOs, and industry lobbies. And I need to mention such instrument as Brussels Binder. The Brussels Binder gives a platform for women in Brussels to be invited to the conferences as speakers. Another instrument is European Women's Lobby. And this association advocates for equality in 26 member states of the EU as well as in the EU institutions. These are from bottom-up initiatives, and they are quite successful. Another lesson that we can learn from the EU is a discourse. Women in Europe, more often than others, raise voice about soft and hard approaches to gender equality. In gender equal societies, hard approaches are not needed, but there is not even one gender equal society on earth. So, how to make a society gender equal? Or who should do it? A state with a legal responsibility, a business with a social responsibility, a woman with individual responsibility, or a man with his individual responsibility, or all of them. If you can use the chat, you can please answer or tell what you think about it, who takes responsibility in your opinion, and we can discuss this later on, after the presentation. In liberal world, we will often hear that women should be treated no better than men. They should get their positions based on merit. We hear that bright, top leaders among females are examples that it is possible for a woman to get on top, mainly taking individual responsibility. These women are self-made. They do it without using any mechanisms of support. I would like to share with you a story of a woman I admire. She is not Ukrainian. She is not European either. She is an American with Indian roots, a politician, former governor of South Carolina, and here you will probably recognize her, former ambassador of the United States to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. When Nikki graduated, she got a job with a recycling company. She was accounting supervisor of the company. And then, if you permit, I read a passage from her book, Kant is Not an Option. I was pretty giddy when I started. I remember walking in the boardroom in our fancy corporate office the day of our first board meeting and seeing a conference table full of men. I was the first and the only female executive in the company that ever was there. But I wasn't intimidated, only excited. The CEO was running late, so everyone was chit-chatting, waiting for the meeting to start. I sat down and exchanged pleasantries with a grey-suited man to my right. Suddenly, the CEO walked in the door. Everyone grew quiet. Then one of the other ex-executives turned to me and said, "Nikki, why don't you go get Paul a cup of coffee?" I was stunned. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But whatever I did, I knew it would dictate how my colleagues treated me from there on out. I smiled politely and said, "Okay." Then I picked up the phone and dialed my secretary. Pam, I said, would you please get Paul a cup of coffee? I don't know where my response came from. It was instinctive somehow. But I was right. They all looked at me, stopped talking for a second, and then went on with the meeting. From then on, my colleagues treated me as an equal. You see, the space that belongs to men can be invaded by such extraordinary women who know to navigate within the rules that were primarily established by men for men. To succeed in this way, a woman has to be extraordinary, with natural instincts to play by the rules and to react as an equal when being approached as a secretary. So, to be leaders, women should be extraordinary. Should men? Please answer in chat. I touched upon men's responsibility. We will not go into details of that one now. I just mentioned that it is a question of education and participation. Here I would like to focus rather on an individual responsibility of a woman. Not everyone can react as Nikki Haley. Not everyone has these instincts naturally. Therefore, we need empowerment instruments for a woman, such as professional associations, NGOs, clubs. They help unleash talents and reveal skills of a woman, prepare her for competition. And the competition should let the better one win. The competition can mean different things, of course. Competing for being elected or competing for being appointed may require different approaches. For elections, some states and many parties use quotas. However, quotas in business are not welcome, with some exceptions. France, Italy, Belgium, Germany have been implying binding quotas. The 4 countries currently have 37% of women on boards. The countries that have soft measures have a representation of 25% of women on boards, and the member states of the EU without any measures have just 14% of women on boards. But generally, it is expected that business self-regulate. It should rather take social responsibility and empower women through voluntary gender equality programs, equal pay and transparent promotions. But whose exactly responsibility within business it is? The responsibility usually lies with the top of organization, and these are mainly men. Well, in Ukraine, 58% of law firms have introduced gender equality programs. At Astor's, women get promotion based on merit. At the same time, Astor's was recognized to be one of the best law firms for female lawyers, and indeed, we have 50% of women in the firm. Out of 114 women working at Astor's, 61 are lawyers, 6 are partners, and 9 women lead administrative departments. So, as I showed, the individual responsibility and social responsibility are in place. But why then so many women, and sometimes men, are pushing to introduce gender equality in the law and have non-compliance punishable? If I defended that argument, the reason would be the following. The law works like a clock. It helps societies to develop discipline. And discipline helps women to keep standing in the elections and standing up for herself and defending others. But once elected or defended, what helps her keep going? These are skills, the instincts and the mission. And they are again the part of individual responsibility. You see, to be a real, authentic leader, the law is not enough. To lead, he or she should be genuinely willing to perform. For reflections. Would you like to be a leader? And what is leader for you? Do people become leaders because they get position, or they become leaders before they get positions, and that's why they get those positions. Is the leader the one per status or the one per spirit? Is the leader the one who leads teams, the one who leads equals, or the one who leads in her sphere, for example, having her own business? Please answer these questions or your reflections in the chat, and we can come back to them when we have a discussion round. Now, I would like to touch upon challenges. Whether you want to start your own business, or you want to take decisions within the business of someone else, or within governmental or political establishments, you will face challenges. And these are legal, societal, or emotional challenges. Legal challenges imply failure of legal system to empower a woman. Societal challenges imply expectations imposed by others. And emotional challenges imply your own perceptions and, as a consequence, your own behavior. To overcome the challenges, make sure that your instincts are ready. There are two main instincts that hold women back. When I gave example of Nikki Haley, to which instinct, in your opinion, did I refer to? It was the instinct to obey, or in her case, rather, not to obey. What is the second instinct? What do you want to do when you are being put on the forefront of new experience and everyone is telling you that you are going to fail? For example, you have to do a presentation that you have never done, or you have to lead a department that you have never done. What is the first thing you want to do? In most of the cases, you want to withdraw. The instinct to withdraw is a second instinct that holds women back. As an example, I share with you my own story. Although I lecture and speak at conferences, I rarely speak about my own feelings and my own experience. And here, when I got a proposal to give a speech to you on leadership, I agreed, but immediately wanted to withdraw. I have always doubted my preparedness for being first and for being seen, especially when it comes to my persona and not about the topic of professional matter. But I did not withdraw. A few years ago, I learned to consciously go against that instinct. Before joining Asters, I applied for a top position at one of the governmental institutions that dealt with image of Ukraine in the world. On that time, I already had my NGO Promote Ukraine, and I believed that I was well prepared for a job for which I was ready to move from Brussels to Kyiv. I learned that there were 33 applicants, and then I learned that 4 applicants were chosen for an interview. My name was not on the list. But because the time between the deadline of applications and the actual interview were just 4 days, after I submitted my application, I decided to travel to Kyiv and to wait for the results there. I traveled, and it was not an easy travel. I recently had given birth. My son was just 6 months old, and my daughter was 6 years old. And I did not have a possibility to leave them at home. So I took them with me for like 1 week, and my daughter had to skip her school for 1 week to let her mom to apply for leadership position in an institution of her dream. You can imagine this flight with stroller, with bottles of milk, pampers, one child in the hands, another next to the hands, not grown enough to not get lost if I suddenly stopped paying attention. It looked more or less like this. And it was a transit flight. It means I had to wait a few hours in Warsaw to take another flight. And then it turned out it was all in vain. I asked the secretary of the selection commission why my candidacy was not good enough, but she would not reply to my emails. It was very disappointing. I was ready to return to Brussels without fight, without finding out why I was rejected. I bought the tickets, checked out from the hotel, ready to go to Brussels. But then my mother called. She knew how important this try was for me. She told me, Marta, if you knock the door and no one is answering, no one is opening, you must climb over the window. This was a key advice of that period of my life. I decided to stay in Kiev and to go to the building where the interviews were taking place. There were 4 people who had to be interviewed for the next 7 hours. I arrived in the morning in order to wait for the good time when I could enter the room where the selection commission was sitting and ask them why exactly my candidacy was not good. 2 hours after I arrived, the secretary of the selection commission noticed me. She approached me. She asked, "Are you Marta, right? You can enter after the 4th candidate." So I was waiting 7 hours to be able to talk to the selection commission. But when I entered the room at 6 o'clock in the evening, I understood that majority of the members of the commission had never seen my CV. I will not go into details of why and how, I will just describe what I had seen. There were 9 people in the commission, 8 of which were women. 1 was a man, and this man was sitting at the head of the table. He was the head of the commission. And before asking questions to me, all these women first had turned their heads direction men. I could not believe that. Why are they sitting in the decision-making body if the instinct to obey is still heavily present? I mentioned already that there were 33 applicants to the position of the leader, but I did not mention that 29 of them were women. Yet at the end, it was a man who was chosen to lead that governmental body. This experience was worth traveling so far and waiting so long. I came back to Brussels, not disappointed, but rather inspired. Within 2 weeks, I started a project, EU-Ukraine Women in Politics, in order to help other women to get into leadership positions. I learned 2 lessons from this experience. Men lead, women follow. To change that, you must climb over the window. Today, I have my NGO, I have a mobile application, I am editor-in-chief of the journal about EU-Ukraine relations, I work at the best law firm of Ukraine with high social responsibility. I am surrounded with happy individuals, highly qualified lawyers, most of whom are leaders in their sphere. I know that when no one is opening the door, I will climb over the window. And to rephrase, when I hit the glass ceiling, I will look for windows called individual, social, or legal responsibility. To sum up, what is our kit for the beginners? First of all, know your rights about equal pay, about transparent procedures. See what empowerment mechanisms are around. Is there something your company proposes, projects, programs on gender equality? Are there NGOs? Are there networking mechanisms? Third one, prepare your instincts. Do not obey, do not withdraw. And finally, surround yourself with happy people. Look for leaders you admire to learn from them. If you do not have such leaders around you, read books about them, blogs. Join committees, NGOs or clubs where you can network with such people. No such NGOs around? Start one yourself and let your journey begin. I would be excited to hear what do you think about all that, what I have said, to hear your questions which you asked when you registered. If you have any wish to talk about it later, you can always write me on my email address, contact me, and we can talk later if we don't have enough time today. And now I would like to give the floor to the moderator back, to Fationa. Uh, Fationa, I think we don't hear you. I think you have to, yeah, you have to put your microphone.
Okay, I have forgotten this one.
I'm so impressed with your story. It was so touching. The whole story of how you got to this position. It's I admire it. So it's very impressive. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Veronica, and I was crowned Miss Ukraine 2018, and then I was disqualified for being a mother. So now I have a worldwide campaign, Right to be a Mother, which aims to change rules of Miss World, Miss Universe, Miss International, and Miss Earth beauty pageants. The theme of female leadership is very familiar with me because it's what we do every day, all women do every day in our lives to become more successful and to reach our goals. I want to speak briefly about my campaign and which results we got in the recent 2 years and how it was all happening. So I was qualified in 2018, and then I got a massive support from women all over the world who was texting me, who was sending me messages supporting the movement, and those millions of women who are being banned um, from being successful, from their careers, from their dreams, basically. So at this point, I understood that I need to start my own movement and to start my own campaign who will protect women and to give them a chance to develop in professional spheres, to be successful, and to reach their goals. So in 2 years now, we have campaign is 2 years now, we have managed to achieve a global media coverage. And this was very necessary in order to find like-minded women and people for our activities. We got media coverage in December, which counted 300 medias all over the world. The New York Times, Daily Mail, BBC, The Sun, The Times, Telegraph, Mirror, Euronews, CNN, and many, many others who supported the movement. So I feel like 21st century, our world is ready for women leaders and for all of the women activities um, and our organizations like our NGOs. We're especially proud of support of the best lawyer of the year 2018, Raven Naik. It's the best lawyer in human rights who supported our cause. So we have a big team who working with us. Now we have collected 23,000 of signatures of support in our petition to change the rules of Miss World beauty pageant. And now, next step of our campaign is to develop our strategy in the United States. And I had to go to the UN Women to participate in the 64th session of the Commission in the Status of Women in the UK, in the UN. But unfortunately, because of the COVID-19, it did not happen and the commission was postponed. We really hope that it's going to happen next year. And finally, the biggest achievement of 2020 is our registration of our NGO, which is an important continuation of our campaign. So we are moving towards to a new achievements now at this stage. That is briefly about our campaign. Maybe have any questions or any thoughts?
Thank you very much for your testimony. Really, it's very courageous of you to have started this procedure, and it was really an important step. I think it will help a lot of women throughout the world. So we will open the Q&A session.